everybody. Welcome back to Fanzone Debate. We're here for a good one. I got my good friends Mark and Cody here with me for this one. I'm super excited. We have this first match of a title picture for you. Looking forward to this. We see the return of Kirk Kowalkowski after winning in after losing in the finals of the tournament that we had earlier this year against Brian Michaels, who went on to win the title. So Kirk hasn't played in a couple months here, but he's back and he's going up against Cameron Holzmann, who did lose to Brian as well in the tournament. So both of these people recently having felt the scorn of one MacGuffin, and they are now here to maybe try to win a match, get to a contender match, see what happens. Mark, you're here. I feel like you were there for both of those matches that I just talked about. Your thoughts on this one coming up today?
They sound familiar. I'll take your word for it that I was there. Like I've been there for several Holzmann matches, several Kirk matches. I gotta tell you, they just kind of
they do blend together,
they just kind of blend in together. I think Kirk had a similar story about this. It's saying like, oh yeah, like do you see this match? And he had no recollection of it, and then he pops on the video and he was the host of the match. Like, that's kind of how I feel about this one. Checks out. This match should be good though. I don't know why I went on that really long tangent. These are two guys that have been in it for a while, and they usually bring something good to the table, so it should be fun.
All right, and Cody, you are here as well. Your thoughts on the fact that both of these people recently lost to Brian Michaels?
Yeah, wouldn't know what that fucking feels like at all. Basically, everybody in this fucking title picture lost to Brian Michaels, and the only person that doesn't get to play again is my ass. Whatever, cool. That's fine. I'm not upset. No, I beat both of these people. I beat one of these people twice. I beat Holtzmann once. So they are both worthy opponents. Holtzmann loves to talk about dragons. Kirk likes to talk about old shit. So see how they both battle it out. I'm just ready for one of them because I think these two, and probably, I guess I can say it, Jacoby on the other side. I think they're three of the best in this, and I think I just want a good fight against whoever the champion is at this point. So yeah, I think they are great, and them squaring off in 4 rounds. Again, seeing Kirk fight in 4 rounds is just always weird to me at this point because he's always been in 5 rounds. So yeah, we'll see what happens, and hopefully we get a speed round because I hate that fucking round, but I hope they have to endure it. So.
I agree with everything you guys said. Let's bring in the players. We'll start by talking to the lower ranked player today, Mr. Cameron Holtzmann. Cameron, you mentioned to me that your last 2 matches were Brian Michaels and Cody Newberry, and now you're playing Kirk Kowalkowski, so you are kind of getting some of the best of the best. But I agree with Cody
when holy trinity.
when Cody says that you're one of those players that are up there. It's one of the best of the best playing in this league right now. Your thoughts going up against Kirk?
Yeah, like you said, the schedule I have been handed in the last little bit has been a little rough for me. It's been a little difficult, but it's exciting. Like Kirk is one of the people that, like, when you think of Fanzone, you think of Kirk as like one of the best of the best. Like, you think Kirk, you think Cody, I guess you think Brian now after what he was able to do just now and just run through all these people. And so it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, Kirk and I have such different tastes in everything. And so seeing how we are able to prep for the things each other know and like is going to be super, super interesting. We got some interesting questions with some interesting choices that I'm excited to see how the rounds play out. Yeah, this is going to be quite the match.
Absolutely. Let's bring in Mr. Kowalkowski. Kirk, welcome. Let me paint a picture for you, Kirk. You knock out Kaleb Koho. You knock out Joe Farrelly. And now you got to go up against, you went up against Brian in a very, very close match. I feel like I know you pretty well, Kirk. I feel like you got to be a little upset that you didn't get to go to that title match and play Cody. and now you're back in this picture. What have been your thoughts the last couple months here?
Yeah, it was a rough loss, and I mean Brian. Obviously, I mean you see what he did. It's there's no shame in losing to Brian, but you know it's rough. You know, and it's one of those things you think about. And you know, if I had this moment back, a couple extra seconds here, said something different, maybe it could have gone differently. But what's nice is this is probably my quickest turnaround after a loss ever. So I'm kind of getting right back into it, which is always better for me because you know I like to just keep in fighting shape. Downside is I got to play Holzmann because Holzmann is really good and has proven himself as a top tier player. And I was looking at the rankings, and I think he's pretty much the last upper echelon, like title contention level player that I haven't played at all yet. So I'm excited to play him, but I also feel like I'm in that position. We're both in that position now where it's just like, from here on out, there's no more easy matches for us. It's all going to be hard. So I'm looking forward to it. Like you said, we kind of both went chalk with our strengths and what we know and what we're good at. So we'll just see who's able to do better. I know Holtzmann, I watch a lot of his fights, and it's always, you know, he gives a really good argument, and that he's like, oh, I had no idea what I was talking about. I made that all up. I never seen it. So that makes for a scary fighter. So we'll see how it goes tonight.
Absolutely. So here is how it is going to work. So we gave the players 4 questions based on categories that they drafted. They are going to debate those questions tonight before our very souls. They are each going to get a 1-minute opening, followed by a 5-minute freeform, followed by a 1-minute closing. At the end of the debate, Mark, Cody, and I will write on our handy dandy boards who we thought won the debate. 2 out of 3 votes wins you a point, and the first person to 3 points wins the match. Any questions?
No.
All right, well then let's kick it off. All right, we're going to kick it off with your first question, which was drafted in the category of actors and actresses. Your question is, which 70s Al Pacino character would be the most terrifying to have lunch with? Clarification for the audience at home, does not need to be portrayed by Al Pacino, just a character in an Al Pacino 70s film. So, Kirk, you drafted this. That means you get to go first. You have 1 minute when you start talking. I will come in to give you a 10-second warning when the time comes.
What is lunch? Lunch is sitting down across from the table for somebody and socializing, conversing for an hour or so. So this is actually a really easy pick for me because I picked a character who every time they pop up in their movie, I am automatically anxious. My skin starts to crawl because of the kind of person I am. I picked Angie Wojcik. I think I'm saying it right. Sonny's first wife from Dog Day Afternoon. She's not in the movie much, but she makes a big impact because every time she's in the movie, she never shuts up. As soon as she's on screen, she's talking. She's loud. She's obnoxious. She's self-centered. She's boring. She has no curiosity about anything that doesn't directly involve her. The world revolves around her. She has very narcissistic tendencies. So she's not necessarily terrifying in the sense where, oh, I'm in danger if I eat lunch with her. But the idea of sitting down and spending that time with her is terrifying to me. Even when she's in the movie, I'm just like, please get her off the screen as quickly as possible because this is a very unpleasant experience. I couldn't imagine how bad it would be actually sitting down to talk to her for real.
Time. Okay. So we're going to move over to Cameron. Cameron, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
When we look at the question, I think the word terrifying is the key here. And there are a lot of things that terrify me, but what terrifies me most is the potential for me to lose my own life or to have the person across from me die and for it to potentially even be at the cause of something I did, something I said. I am a very anxious person. I have social disabilities and I mess up in conversation a lot. So I picked Judge Francis Rayford from And Justice for All. Rayford is a manic depressive, borderline suicidal Korean War veteran. I would be terrified that anything I say or do could put him on edge, or worse, put him over the edge, and I have to live with that on my conscience. He has shown that a simple standard meeting with a coworker, like when he goes in the helicopter with with Pacino in the movie can turn to him not just being willing to take his own life and risk everything, but being willing to take him with him. He puts others in this bad position. He is in this bad position himself. He is shown to always be carrying a gun with him, always be in this state of high stress, this state of manic depressive borderline suicidalness, and that puts me so much more on edge.
Time. All right. 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking. I will throw up the 1-minute warning when the time comes. If I feel like you guys are moving on a point that I don't like and I think is nasty, I'm going to throw up the let's move on. If you're not letting your opponent talk at all, I'm going to throw up the let your opponent talk. Don't make me do that. Otherwise, I will send Nick Twohig to your house. So,
Promise?
Promise? Yes, I promise. I have his number. So
Make him go through customs.
I would say the problem with your argument is I know there's a lot of ancillary stuff going on with the judge in this movie, but we do have a scene where he actually does sit down to have lunch. We have an example of that, and it's an incredibly pleasant experience. He's warm, he's charming, he's funny, he gives good advice, he's caring, he's intelligent, and he helps Arthur, the person he sits down to eat with. So the actual lunch experience, whatever else going on it, is actually really good. And I sit there and I watch it. I'm like, this is somebody I would really like to sit down and have lunch with.
I think the thing is that's him on a good day. That is the one time we see him in this very positive position. On a bunch of other times, we see him putting a gun in his mouth in the middle of a day of work. We see him trying to take someone down with him in a helicopter. We see him being shown to be in possession of weapons all of the time. He is unassuming. It is one thing to go to lunch with a person who's clearly dangerous, who you know up front is going to be that person. But to be with this person who under the surface is hiding that, that's what scares me. You keep saying, I'd be terrified to go to lunch with Angie. I'm sorry, but she's not terrifying to go to lunch with. She's not scary to go to lunch with. She's a person who is frankly maybe a little bit annoying. That's not scary. That's just a little, like you said yourself, unpleasant.
The experience is terrifying. I mean, terrifying doesn't have to be my life is in danger. Terrifying is I'm going to spend a really horrible and miserable hour with somebody. I also have sanctuary anxiety and things like that, but for me, like, I don't sit down. If I know people who carry guns, I don't sit with them like, oh, I'm probably going to get shot here. But I know this person. I sit down with them, and it's going to be just an hour of draining misery. The conversation she has in this movie, her husband is robbing a bank, and her first thought is, what about me? Are they going to try and shoot me? What's going to happen to me? She is just beyond help, beyond reproach. And like I said, very narcissistic. It's going to be a miserable experience. I don't have to do anything else with her. I don't have to get a helicopter with her or do anything else. I just have to sit and eat lunch with both these people. If it's just an hour of lunch and nothing else, I will take the judge 10 out of 10 times because, like I said, we have evidence that is a pleasant experience.
I think the problem is you're looking at this woman through the lens of this movie where she is in a panicked, heightened state because of a major situation going on with her abusive ex-husband, who we are not that person. You keep saying she's self-centered. No, she's not. She's shown to be a loving mother who takes care of her children to the best of her abilities. Despite divorcing her son, he still cares for her and his children so much that he leaves a large portion of his life insurance to them, not entirely to his new lover that he's committing this crime for. A woman that Sonny is willing to do such a major thing for has to have these positive, uplifting qualities that I'm sure if you took the time to actually talk to this woman and get to know her, you might like. I am not saying that any... Sorry.
Good. No good.
I am not saying that any person with a gun makes me afraid. What I am saying is that a person who is shown to be manic depressive, borderline suicidal, has been shown that he is willing to take other people with him in his crazy escapades, could be put on the edge by anything I say. We see him put a gun in his mouth and prepare to pull the trigger, and I would be terrified that anything I say or do could put him past that point, and I have to either live with that or go with him.
I would say that, first of all, as far as Angie goes, he's not robbing the bank for her. He's done it for Leon. And she actually she's so insufferable that she drives Leon into the arms of another person. She drives him out of the house. In that final conversation, the phone conversation, you see how miserable, it gives you a perfect picture of how miserable Sonny is in that relationship. Just how you can tell that it's constant, like that constant scream, that constant yelling. When she's talking to the cops, she keeps talking about that ride that he made her go on. You know, just that is her constant personality. It's not just because, I'm stressed out or I'm worried about my husband. It's all about me. As far as the judge goes, first of all, most of the things you're talking about take place in the workplace. I think he's a very different person in the workplace. I think that's where all his stress and anxiety comes from, and his suicidal tendencies. When you get him out of work, he seems like a much nicer person. Also, having lunch with him as just a regular person you meet and not somebody you know intimately from a movie, you wouldn't know in a social situation that he's suicidal, that he's dangerous. He never lets on that any of those things are how he's. Most of that stuff he keeps to himself, unless you work closely with him. But if you're just sitting down across from him for lunch, it's like I said, you're going to have a good time. He's going to make you laugh. He's going to tell you good stories. He's going to give you good advice. He's a very kind, gentle man. And that's all you're going to know. Basically, you're not going to be worried about all the other stuff because he's not going to let you know or let on at all that that's what's going on inside his head.
I'm sorry, but you bring up Angie about the roller coaster, the theme park ride. Have you considered that is not because Angie is the problem in the relationship, and maybe that Sonny, a absolutely lunatic, abusive person, as we see as evidenced in the film, is the person that caused her to be that way, and that removed from that situation, she might not be.
Absolutely, she probably had a really rough life to make her that way. Doesn't make me want to be around her anymore, or avoid her any less.
Time. Okay. Cameron, we're going to start with you. You have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
To be terrified is to be in a constant state of fear. Being in an unfortunate and frankly annoying conversation with a woman is not something that terrifies me. It's something that's a little bit unpleasant. Kirk keeps bringing up that she's this horrible, terrible woman to be around. No, she is not. She's a caring mother. She has an abusive ex who still somehow cares for her. Yeah, she overshares. Kirk is saying she drove her husband away with her behavior. Have you considered the fact that A, he's abusive, and B, her husband is clearly, as evidenced by the film, in a homosexual relationship and maybe didn't want to be married to her because she's a woman? Francis Rayford is as I said before, manic depressive, borderline suicidal, can go from up to down in a moment flat, whether it's in the middle of a workday or in a casual situation. He is going out for a lovely casual helicopter ride with his friend to show him his passion and says, I'm going to go too far. I'm going to go further than the gas. I'm going to take you with me, and they crash into the river. He makes public displays of saying that he believes that there is law, order, and that he is above that, despite being at the top of the legal system. He is unassuming. He leaves you wondering what's going to happen, and is a constant state of fear that something might go wrong with him.
Okay, we're going to move over to Kirk. Kirk, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
I'm terrified of the idea of having lunch with Angie. Tomorrow's August 22nd. That's Dog Day afternoon day. I'm going to rewatch the movie, and I am terrified to see her scenes because I dread it because of how awful she is, what an awful person she is. Cameron's trying to say that she's a great mother. The only thing with her mother is her dragging her kids around the street by the arm, putting them to bed and ignoring them when their father's in the middle of a bank heist. So she's not a good mother. She's not a good person. Cameron used the words for the judge, unassuming. That's exactly right. Cameron's using information he has as a viewer of the movie and not as a human being who would be sitting down to eat lunch with this person without that extra information. Like I said, we have knowledge of what it's like to have lunch with the judge. He is kind. He is friendly. He is helpful. He is funny. He is nice to be around. The person he has lunch with appreciates the time, appreciates the help, enjoys the time he spends with them. No one in this movie enjoys being around Angie or wants to be around Angie. People like spending time and socializing and having lunch with the judge.
Time. Okay. We are going to bring in El Judgerinos. I think my baby might be awake, which is very unfortunate for my wife. Sorry, Maggie.
Shout out Maggie.
Oh, she definitely is awake. I just heard her. That's really that's a problem. All right. Okay. Interesting. I have seen one of these films. I have not seen the other. But I also saw Dog Day Afternoon like 5 or 6 years ago, and I remember loving it. I think I dropped the $5 on it. I feel like I dropped the $5 on it. But I have not seen it since.
For your standards, I hope so.
So I do not remember this character specifically, but as they were talking about it, stuff was brought back. I thought, all to be said, I thought both players did a good job of really telling me about their characters and why having a lunch with them would be a terrifying thing. Like I didn't really. I think I get what Cameron was doing of being like, terrifying means to fear for your life. Like I get that. I get why he attacked that on Kirk, but I thought Kirk did a good job of painting the picture of like why you would be terrified to go to a lunch with us. I felt that very much of like even family I have of being like, oh, I really don't want to go do this. This is fucking terrifying. Like I get it. That being said, it all kind of came down to the other player telling me why it would actually is good, and for that I went with Kirk. I think the thing that ended me at the was Kirk's closing. There was something that Cameron said where he was talking about how in the context of what we see in the movie of what Sonny is doing, there's moments that you could say why was it Angie, right? Was that her name? Of why she wouldn't actually be that bad. I thought Kirk did a good job of actually flipping that and saying like in the context of the movie that we have, like we actually see Cameron's character having a lunch and it's positive and there are good things that come out of that and he is unassuming. And I thought Kirk's whole closing describing that like in the context of the movie that having sitting down and having a meal with him wouldn't be that bad. And actually would be probably good. So I went with Kirk, though I do think it was close. Mark.
Yeah, this one was pretty tough. So I know we're in a good one. Like just right out the gate, like I'm looking at this, I feel like weird about the decision. But what? Yeah, I think. Yeah. Like I said, I never agreed to lead up something about that. I did go with Kirk on this one. I think because I'm a little bit similar to Tim on this one. Like, and I kind of think most of the most of the buildup of your character was maybe like a bit of a wash. I kind of like where I think this, to me, the difference in this one was the defense, or I guess like the somewhat attack, the defense of the pick, or at the very least kind of saying like why like the lunch with this particular person like wouldn't be so bad. And I think Kirk did a pretty good job of both explaining how the lunch, at least with Cameron's character, can be fine at points, and how we've seen him have good times like with the lunch, and also how like a lot of his stress kind of comes from his work, to where like you may not necessarily have a bad time when the case when it comes to Kirk's character, there's never gonna be a good time with this person. Like she's always gonna suck.
Okay, Cody, I feel like may disagree with us, Mark. Let's find out.
Yeah, I disagree. I went with Cameron.
What a poker face on this guy.
I'm not trying to do a poker face. Never claimed to be. There was no suspense, especially after two people. But no, I thought overall like terrifying. Again, whatever spin zone Kirk tried to paint it as a terrifying because he just didn't want to go to lunch. I just didn't buy it all. Like she's just awful. Like when I watch this, I dread these scenes. No, he doesn't. That's just BS. But he's good for argument's sake. Whatever the case may be. I just felt like Cam painted a picture of why I would be terrified, and again, that's why I think the question mattered on this. Like, terrified to sit across from this person, and like, I think the defense is against like Alice. Like, maybe it's Sunny that's the issue. Maybe she's the problem because of all these other, you know. I love that he's like, she's a bad baby. He's a bad. We get to see her do a parent job twice, but like her husband's robbing a bank. Yeah, you think she's not the most sound human being possible because her husband's like committing crimes and like having a gay love affair with some other person. Yeah, she's probably not, and it's probably Sonny's fault. So overall, I think Cam just painted it perfectly, backwards and forwards, defense and thing. But again, Me and Tim disagreeing on the first question. Who would have thought? So
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So we are going to move on to the next question. This was drafted by Mr. Holzmann. It was in the category of DreamWorks animation. And your question is, what scene from a How to Train Your Dragon film best sums up the whole series? Cameron, you get to kick this one off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
The core theme and the thesis of How to Train Your Dragon as a series is that through working together, humans and dragons, particularly Hiccup and Toothless, have the power to change the hearts and the minds of the people around them. And nothing better illustrates that than the romantic flight from the first How to Train Your Dragon. This is when Toothless and Hiccup take Astrid for the first flight together. In this moment, this is the first time we see them change someone's mind. Through their bond and through this beautiful ride, they are able to convince Astrid that there is so much more to dragons than they initially thought, and that either of them alone would not be able to do it, but together they can. Hiccup can change, Toothless can change, and Astrid can change, all perfectly parceled into this one scene. Every single movie tackles the idea of changing the minds of others, and this scene is the beginning of that idea, the first time it occurs. Hiccup lays it out himself at the start of the scene. You have to give him a chance, you have to give Toothless a chance, and let him show you what they can do. And by the end of her scene, Astrid herself is saying, I admit it, it's amazing, and he's amazing. They're not always going to get along perfectly, but they're capable of amazing, amazing things together.
Time. Okay. We are going to move over to Mr. Kirk, and you will have 1 minute when you start talking.
Cameron said one thing right. The core of How to Train Your Dragon is Toothless and Hiccup working together. I picked the first flight, learning to fly scene in How to Train Your Dragon, the first movie, when they're using the fake tail for the first time. I think this perfectly encapsulates everything the movie about, which is Toothless and Hiccup's partnership, their friendship, their relationship, working together. It's about Hiccup in the scene. He uses his ingenuity and the things that make him different as a member of society actually to improve things and makes him heroic. He depends on his invention, but also eventually depends on just his intuition and his trust with Hiccup. There's the scene. It's dangerous for a while. Things look bad, but together they work it out and make it out safely. You see. The level of adventure in this, the level of danger that's involved in working with these animals. So I think this is the core. Everything's Cameron talking about, everything else in the movie builds off this foundation. It sums up the film perfectly.
Time. All right. Excellent choices, gentlemen. You have 5 minutes to freeform when one of you starts talking.
I would say that if you're going to say the core theme of these movies, I disagree completely, but if you say the core theme is changing hearts and minds, first of all, it's not the Astrid scene that sums this up. It's the Stoic scene changing his mind. Stoic is the person whose mind needs change. That's what this whole story, that first movie, that's a big part of his motivation, is changing his father's mind and them coming together. Astrid is a very easy sell. It's not that big of a deal when she changes. So you don't learn much from that. It's just, oh, there's dragons now and they're friendly. Okay, cool. So there's really nothing there where you're like, oh, they really worked hard together to change her. Stoic is the one that is the if that's what it's about Stoic, not Astrid.
See, the thing is, I think you're underselling Astrid as a character and her role before that moment happens, because Astrid is set up from the beginning to be the prized future dragon killer. She is the person that Hiccup is supposed to be, that everyone wants him to be, and he manages to change her from being that person into a person like him. The problem with your scene is the fact that there are a million other scenes of Toothless and Hiccup flying together and doing these new and amazing things together. It's no different for your scene than it is for any of those. All this scene shows us really is that dragons can fly and that Toothless might need Hiccup's help, but that entire point is undercut, and you're saying that the theme is the bond between Toothless and Hiccup being necessary. The entire third film is about how Toothless and Hiccup don't actually need each other to work together and to fly. It's about them becoming independent. What the series is about is how their bond changes people.
It's the series about is about their bond, even as they're learning they're going to have to separate. It's still about their bond. The whole movie is them working together for the good of the dragons, and everything else. There's, like you said, there's a lot of scenes like this that all build off of this first scene where they're coming together and learning to fly together, learning to work together. Every other scene like that, including yours, builds off that. You're talking about Astrid changing. She doesn't really change. She's a young person. She's open-minded. She's taught one thing. She's given new information, and now she understands a new thing. There's no real change in her personality personality or character or who she is. There's a change, maybe the expectation of what she's going to do, but there's no real change. There's not a lot of effort. Again, Stoic is the one that is the major change. And if anybody's looking at this movie like, wow, what's the big change in How to Train Your Dragon? It's Stoic. Also, I question your fact you say the whole core theme is changing hearts and minds. By the end of this first movie, hearts and minds have been changed, and they're changed throughout the rest of the series. So if that's the core, that's what this scene is about. You have 2/3 of the trilogy that are not represented by this scene.
Okay, so the theme of changing hearts and minds is present throughout the entire thing. In the second one, you have Drago, a person who was scarred, deformed, and hated by dragons. And Hiccup still does his best to change his mind. And you know what? Sometimes you realize that some people are so set in their ways that you can't change them. But it's still worth an effort. It's still worth trying. He still changes Eret, son of Eret, in the second movie. He still changes the warlords, the other tribes, in the third movie while working against Grimmel. That theme is ever present throughout. What you said was Astrid doesn't change. She just learns a new thing and she understands more things and then she acts differently because she knows new stuff. That is the definition of a person changing. If I told you world-shattering information and you started acting differently, congratulations. I have changed your core beliefs and your core tenets. How did that happen? Because of the bond between Toothless and Hiccup. That is what
there's no effort behind it. I mean, it's such a forgettable scene because it goes by so quickly and you're not, oh, wow, they changed her and everything's different now. Everything's different when they change Stoic. And again, like I said, yeah, they change people. So the second movie is about the failure to change anybody. Eret changes because his life is saved. And it's the change that you see in these movies is humans and dragons working together. Eret is already working with dragons in this, so there's no real change in him other than he becomes a good guy because they save his life. There's no human dragon element to that at all. It's all about just what they're able to do for him. Like you said, they fail to change the bad guy in the second one. They fail to change the bad guy in the third one. There's not a lot of change. And you talk about the movie ending, the last movie ending with them separating. They bring them back together. At the end, they have that false finish at the end, and they bring them back together because the story is incomplete, the character is incomplete, and the audience feels incomplete if the two of them aren't together because he has Astrid, but that's not enough. He needs Hiccup as well, or he needs Toothless as well.
Like I said, they have the power, they have the potential. That is the theme, and that is what is being set up. This is not supposed to be, oh, everything's different by the end. This is us learning that change can happen and that it can be done through the two of them. I don't need everything to change in an instant all at once. That's not how change works in society or in people. But what we see is as the ride goes along, Astrid, and you're underselling these moments, has these moments of first being afraid, being worried, and then as they go upside down and they ride up through the clouds and we see the moon soaring past them, that you can see in her eyes the way that it changes. She goes from a place of fear to a place of wonder, seeing beauty that she could not have seen without Toothless and Hiccup taking her there. You're saying that Eret was a dragon rider? No, he wasn't. He was a dragon poacher.
Time. Okay, let's go to Kirk first. Kirk, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
It's funny that Cameron criticized my scene because, it's the first time they fly, and then there's a bunch of other scenes of them flying together. But he also says that his scene is so important because it's the first time someone changes, but then there's a bunch of other changing and attempting to change that goes on. And I think the difference between those two is his scene is completely forgettable. When you think about Astrid and change and everything, that doesn't even come into the equation. Mine is foundational. When you think about how to train your dragon, what's the first thing that flashes in your mind? Toothless and Hiccup. Astrid is maybe the third or fourth character that pops in your head because she is not foundational to this. Them coming together, like he said, them working together, that first flight sums up everything they do together, sums up everything comes after, all their relationships, the people they're able to work with, comes because the two of them are able to work together and work through differences of human and dragon. And as they do that, that's foundationally builds everything else from there. Everything else that happens in this movie comes from this scene. That's why it's the best scene that sums everything up.
Time. Okay, we're going to move over to Mr. Holzmann. Cameron, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
How to Train Your Dragon, the core theme of the series is not just humans can fly dragons and they can work together. It is that can be used to do so much more. And that is what the romantic flight says. Kirk keeps trying to knock me for being forgettable despite not naming a single specific moment, a specific visual in his sequence. all this scene shows us is that dragons can fly. Toothless needs Hiccup to fly, and we even see that Toothless needing Hiccup is antithetical to the third movie. Their relationship isn't this perfect fit. They fall because, and they don't need each other to survive. They get lucky through sheer dumb luck. The change is what matters. We see it in Astrid. It sets the foundation. It builds. It creates exactly what we need to see and shows the potential. And the potential that runs through this entire series is what is important. It is not the idea that we can change everyone or we will change everyone. It's the idea that someone can change through what we do together. Astrid shows that in her eyes as they fly past the moon and through the clouds. We see it beautifully, and that's what the romantic flight is about.
Flight is about. Strike it from the record. We're going to bring in the judges. Kirk is walking around. Nope, he's sitting. Okay.
Having fun? Shocking. My channel's live on the videos live on the channel, and shocking Payson's backstage watching.
Oh.
You
could
believe
literally
45
be
minutes before this match.
I
Paisley messaged me anyway.
I used to be mildly annoyed by it, but then I realized that he still watches the videos when they get uploaded.
Yeah.
So I'm still getting the views on the main video. What annoyed me was when like Kaleb Boatman would sit back here and be like, I have to know what's happening in fandom. And then I would lose views because of it. Cody, you are kicking us off.
So this should create interesting conversations after this match, but I ended up going with Cameron on this one again. Not against Kirk, not that I hate him, but it's a cliche. I hate the cliche. I think it's gross when it's like, this person just has so much knowledge on the thing. I believe this person just sold me best on why it encompasses the entire thing. Yes, the hiccup in first flight, I think that's what you think of instantly from this, but what it encompasses is changing somebody. Like, I think that is the whole crux of it, like, besides bias or whatever, and I think he sold it. But like, the whole thing is like, Hiccup was he was the weird one that believed that dragons and didn't find it. It was until he showed somebody else dragons and they all bought into it. That was the whole crux of it, and how they're not this dangerous creatures. And I think that is taught through that first scene. And I think Cam painted that in a perfect picture. Again, most annoying person ever, because that's all he picks is dragon films. But the man knows exactly what to talk about, and he paints it in such a perfect
when I can.
That's fair. So
At least I didn't have to watch Narnia movies. So.
He's never talked about smog to me.
That's fair. I just think, and I think
when I debated
Shut
Robert,
up!
we had to debate what
Shut up!
other character.
Hurry up! Cameron won this on a clean sweep. Let's hurry up. Let's get
Shut
through.
up! This is my time to talk, and you're interrupting. Cam wants to hear himself speak. Listen, all I'm saying is, I think Kirk just lacked details enough to paint it why it encompassed the scene. I think he painted it why it was a good scene, but I don't think he gave me enough why it was the entire time. I think he spent more time defending, like trying to take down Cam's versus making a case for himself. That's my argument. Thank you.
You're welcome. Cam did not win this on a clean sweep. I went with Kirk the Kowalkowski, which is your new nickname, by the way.
Take it.
And here is why. Because in the openings, I was Team Cam. I thought he did a really good job of painting the picture of like what this franchise is about. That being said, I thought Kirk did a really good job of being like, if we're talking about scenes that sum up the series, and you're saying it's about the change XYZ, the stoic scene is what you should have picked then. And he could have just left it there, and I probably would have voted for Cam. But then he doubled down and said, but this is actually what the series is about. and talked about the core relationship of Hiccup and Toothless, and how that first flight shows them together, shows that they can work together. And I thought the point that was really strong, which shows that Kirk prepared for this, was that saying that the filmmakers even know that that is what the story is all about, because they separate at the end of the third movie, and you still have to get the tag on at the end to show that they have to come back together. Because if you left it without them together, if the final shot of the movie wasn't them together, it's not what that series is. So I think if this was like what scene from the first movie sums up the movie, Cameron would have had me. But I thought Kirk actually did a really great job of being like, they didn't change the, like, yes, like Hiccup tries to change the minds of like the villains of the next films, and like, sure, like Eret becomes like a bad guy who works with dragons to a good guy who works with dragons, like, sure, but at its core, it's Toothless and Hiccup. I thought Kirk did a really, really good job of that. So I went with Kirk. Mark, where are you going? You're deciding it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. After the opening arguments, I was a little bit annoyed because it sounded like you guys picked the same scene. I'm like, oh, great. We're just going to argue about the same scene here. That's not what happened. Thankfully it isn't. It was a good fight. I will say, though, I mean, I think in this case, Tim may have been a bit of a jerk on this one. He gave Kirk some false hope. I did go with Cam.
I didn't have much hope, Mark.
Like, listen, like, I think kind of Cody put out pretty well. I mean, like, it just Kirk went after Cam pretty hard, like, throughout this whole thing, and I feel like Cam had an answer for just about everything Kirk threw at him. And it's weird because I do think in this one Kirk did kind of dominate the time, and it honestly didn't really matter that much. And yeah, like, Cam had me pretty hook, line, and sinker, at least on kind of what the general theme is. And when questioned about it by Kirk, was able to give a good answer to how that theme carries over to 3 films.
All right. Well,
I would say, this is my lovely Toothless Build-A-Bear. I would have ripped his head off if I lost this.
We are going to move on to the next question, which was drafted by Kirk in the category of Star Trek. Your question is, what is the most quotable line from an OG Star Trek film? Kirk, you are kicking it off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
When we're talking about quotable lines from movies, we're not talking about the most recognizable line, the most famous line that the characters say. We're talking about day-to-day, what is the line that you can most easily fit in the conversation, that's fun to say, that has a lot of different uses. So I went with, in Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, the crew goes back in time. They're learning to deal with 1980s Earth culture, and one of the things they're dealing with is cursing. Captain Kirk is crossing the street. He cuts a guy off. Guy calls him a dumbass. And Captain Kirk gives one of the best, funniest lines in Star Trek history. Well, a double dumbass on you. I think it's a great line because you can use it. It's not a direct reference. You can use it in any conversation, any argument. You use it in traffic, whatever. And if somebody recognizes it, then it's a nice little bonus thing that you have that connection with them. But it doesn't peg you as like, oh, this is a Star Trek nerd. There's somebody just saying a funny thing. And those are the best and most quotable lines.
Time. Okay. We are going to move over to Cameron. Cameron, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
The philosopher and author Friedrich Nietzsche himself said that the goal of aphorism, or quotation for those who do not do well in their SATs, is to say in 10 sentences what one says in a book. A quote is meant to do the same in just a few words. And so I chose live long and prosper. In just 4 words, it conveys something so simple yet so poignant. It works in the most universal of situations, saying goodbye to someone. The key element for making something quotable is that both the person saying it and the person hearing it need to know what it is, know what it means, and that it can be integrated seamlessly. It can be integrated more because it effectively puts a complicated thought into a short amount of words. It is a beautifully conveyed thought. Someone else conveyed this beautiful thing that we can now use. If I am saying goodbye to someone and I truly mean them the best, I don't want to just say goodbye, farewell, anything like that. In just simple words, I can tell them exactly that I wish them to be healthy and to have a great life and for things to go well for them once they are gone. And its recognizability makes it easier to integrate.
All right. 5-minute freeform, and one of you starts talking.
Cam, that was a really nice opening, but let's be honest, you've never in your life said goodbye to somebody by saying live long and prosper. No one's ever said goodbye to you by saying live long and prosper. It's not a line anybody says. The reason being because there's as accepted and as mainstream as nerd culture is now, live long and prosper still has a stigma to it. If you say live long and prosper, you're automatically pegged as a Star Trek nerd. So normal people don't use it. I've been a Star Trek fan my whole life. I've gone to Star Trek conventions. I've never heard Star Trek fans use it with each other because it's that one obvious thing that everybody knows because they've heard it. So no one says it because you sound like you don't know what you're talking about. You're just saying the most obvious Star Trek line. So it is a famous line, but is in no way quotable or usable in everyday use.
See, the thing is, I think it is quotable everyday use. First of all, you're saying, oh, you identify yourself as a Star Trek nerd. Kirk, it is the year 2024. Being a nerd is actually popular and mainstream now. Liking Star Trek is a thing you can do. My boss, Elizabeth, is the biggest Star Trek nerd in the world. You know what I said to her when I left work today? No joke. I said, live long and prosper. It is her email sign off. That is how confidently she uses it. Yours is so deeply situational. It is an insane way to call someone dumb and really only works in response to someone else calling you dumb. It is a comeback. And there are so many better ways in the 21st century to call someone an idiot. I don't need to say, well, double dumbass on you and make people look at me like I'm a weirdo. If someone says something idiotic, you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say, you're an idiot. You're a dumbass. Shut up. There are so many easier things to convey your thought that make people not look at you like a crazy person.
Okay. First of all, well, just for email signatures are reference, not a quote. And you only said that so you could say that you said it. I don't know what you're talking about. It's a funny thing to say. Double dumbass on you. It's just ridiculous and funny. You said something, they're gonna laugh like, oh, it's a funny way to swear. So it's super quotable. You can use it for anything. You can use it seriously. You can use it as a joke. It's fun. You use it with your friends. I was talking to somebody today who said their friends say it to each other all the time. It's very versatile. It's a very fun thing to say. It's not a direct quote. You're like, oh yeah, I know that quote from Star Trek 4, but it's just a funny thing to say. Like if you just say, oh, you say you're an idiot instead of saying double dumbass. Instead of saying live long and prosper, people say goodbye. Because yes, being a nerd is acceptable, but there's still a stigma to that line. If you say that line, people are going to look at you funny if you're a normie. And like I said, Star Trek fans just don't use it because it's like it's like talking to a bunch of Nirvana fans and saying "Smells Like Teen Spirit" is your favorite Nirvana song. It's the most obvious, laziest thing you can say, so nobody uses it. It's not a quote that gets used. It's well known, it's famous, but it's not quotable in everyday life.
See, but it is quotable in every life. It is used in the most common situation you will have, ending a conversation, wishing someone farewell. Yours is a comeback. It is supposed to be witty and not just a comeback to anything, but a comeback specifically to someone insulting you. If someone doesn't call you a dumbass or call you an idiot, saying, well, double dumbass on you, it doesn't work. You can't just say, oh, well, you're twice the dumbass I am if they don't call you a dumbass in the first place. It is not easy to integrate. It is very situational, and it does not always work. This can be integrate. It just doesn't work because it's a longer, clunkier way to say what you are doing, and it doesn't convey anything more the way that live long and prosper conveys more. It condenses such a complex thought and makes it easy to integrate and easy to use.
First of all, people don't use it. It's said in the movie as a goodbye. It's not saying in life. You're saying there's not a need for comebacks. Like it's very rare that you would ever be able to use a comeback. And you don't have to say it's a comeback. I was in traffic. Somebody beeped the horn at me. Double dumbass on you. It doesn't have to be a comeback. You can say double dumbass without the single dumbass. It's okay. You say double dumbass is clunky, but live long and prosper is not. I mean, that's just a clunkier thing to say. Like I said, it's a famous line, but quotable means you put it in situations. People do not put live long and prosper in any day, everyday situations. Like I said, nerds don't use it. Regular people don't use it. It's not something people use. Double dumbass is so usable, so quotable. Like I said, you get in arguments, come back all the time. That's something you need. I don't know, this argument that it's not applicable in a lot of situations is kind of silly.
Okay, so I think you keep saying that like live long and prosper, it overcomes that so-called clunkiness by virtue of its notability. People know that you're making the quote. That doesn't undercut it. That in fact enhances it. It allows that quote to be integrated more easily for people to recognize it. And then people say, yeah, you know what? It's a Star Trek quote, but I'm not going to question you. I'm not going to look at you funny. I'm just going to say, oh, you know what? That guy is quoting Star Trek. If you say your thing, that is an insane way to call someone done. If you say that, people are going to look at you like you're crazy. You will embarrass yourself. You will be that random guy who stands there at a party, who tries to say something snarky to one of his friends. And everyone,
buddy, that's live long and prosper. Let's be real. Let's be honest. Let's live long and prosper at the party.
All right. We are starting with Cameron on this one. Cameron, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
In the modern day, being a nerd is accepted. It is celebrated, and people everywhere are happy to integrate and accept nerd culture. Live long and prosper is a hallmark that works. It works in one of the most common situations. You can say it when you're saying goodbye. You can say it when you're leaving. He tried to discount the email signature. Written quotes are still quotes. It is still usable. The problem with Kirk's is it is such a deeply inherently situational response that is clunky and unrecognizable that stops a conversation in the middle to have everyone look at you like you're a lunatic. When you say live long and prosper, sure, people might go, oh, it's that guy making a Star reference, look at you like you're crazy or question why you've done it or stop the conversation. They're going to keep going with it and they're going to accept it. And it conveys such this lovely thing that you yourself can't necessarily put into words. I myself can think of 20 different ways to call someone a dumbass. There are better movie quotes that call someone a dumbass, like to call you an idiot would be an insult to stupid people. I would not quote double dumbass on you because I don't need it, because there's better things to say. 4 words is the most useful and usable.
Time. I think you might have lagged there, but time nonetheless. Okay. Kirk, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
Judges, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to practice a little exercise here. While you're off screen and no one can hear you, say out loud right now, live long and prosper. Now say out loud, a double dumbass on you. Which of those 2 things was more fun to say? Which of those 2 things are you more eager right now to work into everyday conversation? That's the basis of quotability. That's all everything quotability is can you work it in? Do you want to work it in? Do you like it? Cam says that live long and prosper expresses this lovely idea. That lovely idea is undercut by the fact that it's a Star Trek quote. People think like, oh, that's a lovely original idea. It's like, oh, he's quoting Star Trek, so it's silliness. There is still a stigma to it, even though nerds are accepted. Try saying live long and prosper at a party using Cam's example. See how that goes for you versus double dumbass when people laugh and think it's funny. He says it's unrecognizable. The best movie quotes aren't even always from movies. I don't know what movie he was quoting. It doesn't have to be recognizable. If someone does recognize it, it's a bonus, but it's just how well can you use it? How much fun is it to use? How can you work in a conversation?
Work it into conversation. Strike it from the record. Okay.
If Kirk doesn't know what movie that other quote is from, I can't wait. Right.
Well, Cam, we know Cody. You got Cody's vote, so let's see which way everybody else went.
I'm still thinking.
That's just very hurtful and judgmental.
Well, I mean, your face.
I remember one play.
As a viewer, I'm not very suspenseful over who you voted for. So,
but no one has even said anything, so my face doesn't mean anything.
But when you're like, I voted against Kirk again, he's going to be mad at me. Yikes!
No, I just don't care personally. Debate better if you don't want my vote.
After Brian I want Fanzone, man.
You sound like garbage, Cameron.
Stop talking.
You should leave and come back. Hey, he's gone. All right. Mark, you're kicking this one off.
Proud of you.
I hate this. This is I hate this because this is probably like the most unsure I've been at this whole time. Like I gotta tell you, on first thought, hearing the answers, like you're thinking, oh, this is probably not. Like I don't know where to go with this one, just because like I feel like somebody brought a lot of arguments here I wasn't necessarily thinking of. I think I still kind of ended up going with Cam on this one. Like I gotta tell you, I liked how Kirk attacked this. I didn't think about like kind of I didn't think about like at least the attack on at least live long and prosper. It just that it's just such a popular line, just nobody says it. Like I think it's a very good way to attack it. I think Cam still did enough to defend it, and also to kind of show how like Kirk's line, I don't really think is like that quotable either. Like it is kind of a weird situational line. You just kind of throw up in there. Like it's so yeah. Like I had to go with Cam on that one.
Cody.
Yeah, well, Kirk spoiled it, but I did go for Cameron.
Yeah,
I thought this was like the most maybe this was the most weighted question ever, but I thought it was. And me and Kirk helped prep for a debate, not on this one, obviously. But I think that was one of the most one-sided arguments I've ever seen in debate history. To argue the most quotable in Star Trek and be like, well, yours is just too popular and no one says it. It's from Star Trek. Who gives a shit? Second, dumbass on you. He couldn't come back with the most popular one, as yours is only a comeback and it only works in situations that somebody calls you an idiot first, and he just couldn't paint a picture that made it quotable in any way, shape, or form. That's like saying in Star Trek when somebody says, may the force be with you. Oh, you fucking cliche bastard. No, it works because it's may the force be with you. I was so
No one quotes that either, but okay.
This is my turn to talk. I just was dumbfounded. I don't know if there's not another one that lives up to Live Long and Prosper, but when they said, oh, you're quoting Star Trek, so you're just a nerd, like, yeah, if you're quoting it, sure, but it's the most quotable. It's not funny, it's not much situational, it's the most quotable. And that is by far, and Cam painted it the best.
I'm drinking the Kirk juice.
Oh my god!
Yes.
I listen to the argument. Apparently, I didn't listen to the argument.
Not even close. Not even close.
Kirk. I love you. Keep it quiet. I bought into Kirk's argument of that I think that we've asked questions of like what is the best quote, what is the like what character, like stuff like that, and when the answer
I'm not walking away permanently, I'm just getting a drink.
When the answers were dropped, I did say like, Kirk, what are you doing? Like I thought for sure the two answers were going to be Live Long and Prosper and First Star to the Left, Straight On Till Morning, or whatever that fucking one is that Kirk does at the end of Undiscovered Country. I thought for sure those were going to be the two quotes. And so when Kirk came out with this other quote, I was like, oh, he didn't use the Straight On Till Morning thing. This is going to be interesting. Like, what does he have planned? And I thought that going from the argument of like, hey, like, when can you can't use Live Long and Prosper quotably in any conversation whatsoever. I actually kind of bought into that. Like saying like, it's not what is the most quotable line to say to other Star Trek people. It was like quotable in general. I thought Kirk painted a good picture. Like, again, apparently my other judges did not agree. Cameron wins the point, but that's kind of where I was going with that. So that being said, Cameron is up 2-1, and we are moving into the final prep question of the match. This was drafted by Cameron. Kirk does need to hit this in order to send it to the bonus. and the category was musicals. The question is, what is the best musical number from a 21st century live action musical? Cameron, you're kicking this off. You get 1 minute when you start talking.
In the realm of musical theater, what makes a musical number great is a few things. Number one, you want the great singing, the great choreography, the acting, all of that stuff coming together and making something great. The other thing you want is you want a number that advances the story, that tells us things, that establishes our characters, establishes our world, and everything like that. And I think 96,000 from In the Heights does that perfectly. The song perfectly establishes who our characters are in their goals and motivations, setting in motion the rest of the musical in a single number and giving each character themes. Usnavi wants to his business, treat Abuela and Vanessa and return home. Sonny wants to use the money and help the people around him. The women at the sun start a new wants to move out of the barrio. Benny wants to go to business school and advance his life. He even gets his money to expand his artwork. All of this is done in this fantastic, great number where we see visual effects and seamlessly. We see fun choreography with great things in the pool, underwater. We have these great vocal melodies from all of our characters singing in this great, joyful, and memorable scene. It makes it great. I assume I'm out of time. I can't.
Yes, Cameron, I felt like I caught everything, but you should leave and come back for sure. Okay, Cameron is fixed. We're bringing in Kirk. Kirk, you have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
Greatest 21st century musical scene is America from the remake of West Side Story. Fantastic music. You have that upbeat, dynamic sound. The vocals and the words, the lyrics actually represent the immigrant experience, and it's so deep and realistic there. But it's not just about the music. It is about the set design, about the costumes, about the brilliant Steven Spielberg direction, where the camera's constantly moving and changing. Great choreography is a great wielding of stage and screen, is a great adaptation of an original piece, both from stage and from the movie. But I think this is just the best. It does everything Cameron says, but just a lot better. It advances that story. It tells you about the characters and their plight and what they're going through. But it does it in such a masterful way in terms of filmmaking and as a musical.
Time. Okay. America versus 96,000. 5 minute free form when one of you starts talking.
I would say, again, like I said, I think these are two very similar scenes. I just think everything mine is just better on a filmmaking scale. Like I said, I talked about the costumes, how good this looks. I think the fact that it's period doesn't make it inherently better. But you have these beautiful costumes every time she twirls around that red and yellow dress. Everybody's dressed so cool. You have the cars with the fins and the white wall tires. You have the cool signage. In your scene, everybody's walking around in t-shirts and tank tops, and you have like random Toyotas and Hondas sitting in the background. So I think there's a difference just from a visual standpoint. My scene invokes old Hollywood in a really cool way and old musicals in a really cool way, where your scene is kind of just a little more boring and flat.
I think mine isn't more boring and flat. I think mine is doing something new. You keep saying these bright, beautiful colors. It makes New York look so dull and boring when a musical number is all about how great it is to be in America, how wonderful and vibrant and brilliant America is. What's wonderful, brilliant, and vibrant in America? The people not from there. It loses its commentary in that moment. The brighter costumes in America are a functional version of a theme called hairography, where you're being distracted by all these bright, colorful costumes to distract you from the other things. 96,000 narratively and musically is more interesting. It establishes 10 plus different characters with individual names, individual identities, and sets us forward. Is the crux of everything moving forwards. America, it might be a little fun. It might have some good choreography, but at the end of the day, it's not that important. It doesn't shed light and it doesn't propel the plot forwards by any means.
It is incredible. It tells this experience, the fact that the hope versus the reality of their experience in America, the good versus the bad. That's why you do have some like darker sides in the scene, but also you have those colors that pop. Like I said, I know what you're talking about, how it's dull and makes New York look boring. That's what your scene looks like. You say 10 plus characters introduced. They're talking about the same thing. Like I know, like poor people may sit around and fantasize about winning the lottery, but it's to this intense, like they're just sitting around talking about it. It's really not that interesting. I don't care what these people are going to do with the money they win. On the flip side, though, like I said, mine is about like the inherent immigrant experience in America and what they go through and the good and the bad of it. So it's much more universal than anything your scene does.
I'm sorry, we want to talk about universal themes. 96,000 touches on the modern struggles financially of poverty, welfare, gentrification of immigrants, also from Puerto Rico, like in your scene. The difference is they don't just say, I love being in America. I'm going to buy a new washing machine. Oh, my landlord doesn't like me because I'm Puerto Rican. Aren't men and women different? Which is the entire dynamic between Anita and her boyfriend in that scene. 96,000 has characters talking about their desire to change things, to invoke systemic change like Sunny does, to change their station in life like Benny and Vanessa want to. It is relevant. It definitely balances the tones of fun and funny as well as romantic and serious without skipping a beat figuratively or literally.
I feel like you say that, but again, it just, here's what we're going to do. And then they make a big deal about painting the numbers on the tiles. And everybody's like, oh, and it ends and it's on a down note. Like it's just their fantasy life. There's nothing, no reality to it. My scene, like I said, is about the reality of their life and what they're going through. And not just like, oh, here's the bad. The whole point of my scene is here's the good side, here's the bad side, and how do they clash and how they come together. Let's talk about the filmmaking. Like I said, my scene, Steven Spielberg doing amazing things, blocking, framing, camera work. Your scene has a few flashes here and there, but a lot of it is just flat, wide shots, character in the middle of the screen, walking towards the camera or walking by the camera, singing. It's not really interesting to look at.
I'm sorry, but there are a lot of great visually dynamic moments in 96,000. The opening of the scene where they're all walking down the street and use the integration of the visual effects with the drawings, replicating the things that they talk about in the lyrics. You have the great moment of Benny walking by the lockers, and you get to see his movement through this unique perspective. You get scenes that are underwater. You get scenes that are in the pool, outside of the pool, from above. This great choreography of people using the water, using the things that they would have as great, colorful, dynamic props. You have moments where it's just characters walking down the street and dancing in the middle of the street. You also are claiming a lot of credit on Steven Spielberg, a man who has had 50 years to establish himself. John M. Chu is a brilliant up-and-comer, has been handed the keys to the biggest musical ever for his next film. I guarantee you 30 years down the line, we could look at John M. Chu the same way we look at Spielberg. Just because his name is attached doesn't give America extra credit.
We're holding his experience against him. It's not his name, it's what he does. He does some brilliant Spielberg-like work there. I mean, Chu might be good, but he's no Spielberg, and it shows here. There's some good choreography, but there's also a lot of people just doing this, like pretending to swim. There's some really lame choreography as well. My scene has, you say just dance in the streets. You have big dance numbers. You have people everywhere. You have dancing in different locations. They're going different places. My scene's all practical, really great sets. Your scene has some really bad green screen, and it's not there long, but it's very noticeable. And it makes the scene very ugly. I think my scene just visually is so much more striking and stunning. Chu versus Spielberg, I'm not even talking that. You look what's on the screen. My scene looks so much better.
Time. Okay, Kirk, you are closing first on this one. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
America is visually dynamic. Like I said, the framing, the blocking, the camera movements. The camera is always doing something, going somewhere, getting a new angle, doing something fresh. It's people dancing. There's a lot of great dance and choreography in it. The scene where they're clapping on the curbs and dancing around, little things. The big scene where you bring the kids in. You have, like I said, the universal immigrant experience sung about here instead of just like fantasy land of, oh, what if I win the money? That'd be fun. And then they don't. My scene ends on such a beautiful, high, exuberant note where his is just kind of a downer. The music is fantastic. That da-da-da-da. As soon as you hear that, it's just like, and the way they use that, where his music is kind of just, oh, it's another Lin-Manuel Miranda song. Doesn't sound as good as Hamilton. But my scene is just, and the way they rhyme, the way the back and forth is so clever, and the lyrics are so clever. I think it's just so much better. Like I said, the music, the visuals, just superior in every way. His is kind of boring to look at. The music isn't that interesting.
Okay. We're going to move over to Cameron. Cameron, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
America's inconsistent. Some parts are visually dull and boring, while others are sure have high energy, but they're distracting. The song only engages in surface level observations, like how the dynamic between men and women are just, we're different with what we view in the new country. And the commentary on the race and economy and the immigrant experience is so surface level. That doesn't make it good. That just makes it baseline. So much of it is just people walking down the street. Whenever it attempts to even focus on the men, it loses consistency and quality. I don't need to hear people saying la 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 America while David Alvarez is punching some punching bags. What I want is a scene that shows me the motivations of all of my characters, sets me up for the future, and has great moments. You say people look like they're pretending to swim. They're swimming in a swimming pool. They do great choreography. They use the pool noodles, the pool floaties. You have the great overhead shots, the great underwater shots, which are great cinematography, the scene through the grate, everything like that. It engages on the modern struggles and talks more seriously, balancing those tones. Musically, it is absolutely not boring. It balances hip-hop, musical theater, creating something new, and it has these beautiful moments, and it all comes together perfectly.
Time. Okay. For some reason, I have an alarm going off. I don't know what it's for, but it's going off on my phone. I'm going to bring in the judges. Oh, it was a random 15-minute timer I put on my phone. Excellent.
Everybody having fun?
No.
Oh.
There's nothing fun about debate, Cody. It's not called Fun Zone.
Give me back the title and I won't have to do this anymore. You don't have to judge.
Tim, can we make that the official tagline? Fan Zone. It's not called Fun Zone.
It's not called the Fun Zone. Yeah. All right, I'm ready. Are you guys?
Yeah. My vote won't anger anybody.
All right, yeah, let's go.
Okay.
Kool-Aid's still strong.
This is crazy. Yeah. Trying to think of how to formulate my thoughts. I think both openings were really good. And painted what their scenes were musically and what they did for the story, which enhanced it, and also visually what was going on. I thought both players did that. I went with Kirk again. I part of me says, like, I feel bad because, like, I want to, but it's how I feel. I'm just being fair in the sense that that's what I felt. And I think that Kirk, one of the most important hits for me was, like, I don't watch wrestling. I don't watch MMA or anything like that, but it felt very much like Cameron took a swing at Kirk, being like, just because Spielberg's name was attached doesn't make yours inherently better. And I thought Kirk, like, dodged it and just, like, uppercut him by saying, like, no, it's just what's on screen. It's not his name. It's what he's doing. And I thought that was a really, really good dodge there, and hit on Cameron. And I thought that Kirk did a really good job of taking everything that was, like I said, I thought he did a good job in his opening of being like, musically, this scene is good. This is what this scene is doing musically, lyrically, but also visually. And every pro that Cameron gave him for Cameron's own scene, I thought Kirk was able to be like, this also applies to my scene, and also here's why yours actually isn't as good as mine in this instance, like with the choreography or with how New York looks, and saying that, like, even Kirk addressed it by saying, like, being a period piece doesn't inherently make it better, but it gives it more of a visual flair when talking about the musical number. I thought that was really smart. So I went with Kirk. I thought he won it pretty handedly for me. But I've been wrong a couple times tonight. So, Mark.
It's very interesting. I think it's funny that I'm going second here because I've actually decided all all the rounds so far. So I did go with Cam.
Oh, jeez.
Like I feel like listen, I'll give Kirk credit here. I feel like he made him work for it here. He brought up a lot of good points, and I honestly am just not a huge fan of West Side Story. He kind of put in that America dancing into kind of a good light. But I do feel like kind of when Cam was describing his musical number, it just kind of felt like his involved a lot more things in it. It sounded a lot funner, and just kind of it felt like it was definitely the more vibrant number of the two.
Okay. Cody, you are deciding this. Are we going to the bonus round?
So I wanted this on the record. The musical number spent very little time talking about the music in the scene. There were fake swimming, there was cool cars, there was this, there was that, but the music itself, very low on both sides. I think the strongest in the entire fight was the opening. I think the middle got very muddled between the two of them, and it was like two catty cat fights just going back and forth. It didn't really do a whole lot for me. But I do agree with Tim with that. It is Kirk.
Wow.
I do agree because I know. I believe me. If I hitched a wagon to somebody that I talk to every day, I would have done the Tim route, not the Cam route, this entire fight. But what I thought was the interesting fight where it ended up happening was exactly the Spielberg. I was hoping that Kirk didn't lash to the Spielberg thing for too long, because that would have just didn't do ton. But basically, like, I think when 10 years from now he's going to say it is like it's not about what he's doing with it, it's about what he chose to do in this. And I think that was crucial. I think the choreography and the swimming, I think honestly they picked two very similar scenes about two similar things, so it was very just like muddled, and then I had to just attach myself to little jabs instead of like full haymakers, because I think picking point, I think Kirk did a smart job of. I think Cam would have been a smart job, because he's like, hey, I'll give you America, but I'll give you the updated version of it, like with the real immigrant story. I just don't think he was able to capitalize that he's been able to capitalize the last three rounds, in my opinion. So that's why I went with Kirk.
All right. Well, in a twist of fate, we are moving on to the bonus round. Here's how this is going to work. I randomized the side of Fanzone that this is going to come from, either Fandom or Mazone, and then I randomized the category that is going to get used from the side. I do it every time. I don't know why you get surprised. And then I randomized the category from the remaining categories that weren't drafted in the main round. So you are each going to get 45 seconds, and you're each going to get 30 seconds. But once I read the question, I'm going to repeat the question. You will then get to splurt out your answer. Whoever goes first, whoever says their answer first will go first. Any questions? Okay, this is gonna be interesting. The side that was drafted,
I can't wait,
was Fandom.
Oh God.
The category was horror icons.
Oh God.
Okay.
And your question is, who is the best character in a horror icons film? Again, who is the best character in a horror icons film?
And just clarify, this is in one specific film.
Yes.
I'm gonna say Laurie Strode in 2018's Halloween.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go with Dr. Loomis in Halloween 4.
Okay. All right. So we are going to take out the other judges. We have Cameron going first with Laurie from 2018's Halloween. Kirk is going with Dr. Loomis from Halloween 4. Cameron, you spoke first. So you're going first. You have 45 seconds on the clock. when you start talking.
2018's Halloween updates Laurie Strode and turns into a perfect final girl and a real representation of what would happen to someone who has been through such a traumatic experience. It is real. It is fleshed out. She has realistic trauma, this traumatic stress that she displays in every aspect of her life. She works to protect her family, and still prepared and paranoid, and she ends up turning out to be right. She takes that final stand. She is a badass. She is responsible. She is the final girl you want to see who actually stands up, is ready, and kicks the shit out of Michael Myers, which we've been waiting for 40 years for someone to do. In Halloween 4, Dr. Loomis is a pacified, same shtick version of what we get. He's stuck just following Michael around, being like, oh no, Michael's going to this place. Oh no, Michael's going to this place. And he doesn't do anything interesting. Laurie becomes this badass action horror hero that we love and want to see.
Time. Kirk, 45 seconds.
I picked Dr. Loomis from Halloween 4 because at this point in time, he is not. Michael's violence and hatred and evil is not a theoretical thing. He has experienced it personally. His body has changed. He is scarred, and he knows what Michael could do. So his obsession is doubled, and his desperation to chase Michael, that white whale of his, that Captain Ahab kind of character who's chasing this ultimate evil, who's trying to convince people that he is this, that he has to be stopped. Him going from people, him protecting people, him warning people. He's a very interesting character because, unlike in the first movie where it's just, oh, I've studied this person I know that he's evil. He's experienced the evil now. He's been through that violence, and it's his obsession to prevent anybody else from ever having to go through that now, and that's what makes him so cool.
Cameron, 30 seconds.
You want to talk about personal experience, obsession, desperation, want to convince people that you are right and that what you've experienced is real. 2018's Laurie Strode is the person for you. She lived that experience. She is known for that experience, but she's taking a stand herself. She isn't pacified, walking around saying, you guys should leave. Michael's walking around. He doesn't get stuck. He doesn't fail ultimately and sit there crying because he's not doing a good job. She takes a stand, stands up for her family, becomes a badass, becomes the horror hero that we want, who finally does what no one else, including Loomis, could do and fights Michael.
All right. Kirk, 30 seconds.
The problem with Laurie Strode in 2018, Cameron says it's real representation. It absolutely is not. She had one traumatic experience 40 years ago, and now this character, we're supposed to expect this character has destroyed, bulldozed her entire life and focused her entire life on stopping this one person that she had one experience with 40 years ago. The problem with this movie is that it takes Michael Myers, the movie character, and tries to put him into real life, and it makes no sense. Her backstory makes no sense in this. Dr. Loomis is a tragic figure, but he's also much more interesting and realistic because his trauma is more real.
More real. Strike it from the record. Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Good match, Cam.
Yeah, whatever happens, this was something.
Yeah.
For the record, America was the objective correct pick on the musicals question.
What would
That's
you
a
have
tough one.
picked? Would you have picked Kirk's scene on the first pick for Dragon?
No.
Oh, I was interested to know that. Okay.
No, my pick was my pick, but America was without question my pick for musicals.
I'd like to see this fight, like full fight.
I'm still thinking. Sorry.
You're good. I wrote mine. I'm putting my board down, but I wrote it. I will change it.
Okay. Mark, you ready? Cody, you starting.
Yeah, I think this is a really good fight. I was curious. I think Cam did a really good job of his opening, basically of painting it. It did lead into like desperation near the end, like throwing stuff at Loomis. Um, which I don't believe his counters in the beginning was like that was correct because like yes, that's Loomis in a lot of films, but it's not in 4. He is like trying to hunt down the evil, like he is, and I think Kirk capitalized that really well by painting that picture for me. I think he painted a really good job for Laurie Strode, but I think Kirk did a really good job counterpointing that. And he kind of used and I think Cam did a really good job of using Loomis to basically paint a picture for Laurie even more in the final one. But I think Kirk's like takedown of Laurie is like puts him in reality, doesn't make it sense. One scene, like I went with Kirk. I think where it's that one scene, basically that one event that she had put her off in this entire trek, which just didn't register as much. But I thought it was a lot closer. This is a fight that I would like to see play out over a full round. But with 45-30 seconds, I had to go with Kirk. That was my pick.
Yeah, I wanted to just keep it going. Fuck. I think this was the closest one. And that usually happens in the bonus round, just given the nature of the bonus round. I thought that both, in my opinion, picked very good characters. I don't love 2018 as much as I did when it came out. The sequels have kind of hurt it for me, unfortunately. I do love Halloween 4. I'm a weirdo. That's like one of my favorite Halloween movies, but that's besides the point. I took long to decide this one because you both did a really good job of saying, let me rephrase. I think you both painted the picture of your characters really well. And kind of like you both more or less spent your whole opening 45 seconds describing your character. I think Cameron got like one jab into Loomis at the end of his 45, but for the most part, both spent their 45 seconds talking about their characters and why they're great and why they are the best given the circumstances of all of the movies. I went with Kirk, and it was really, really close. And I know that probably doesn't sound good because I went with Kirk all night. But I was really on the edge on this one, and Cameron had me through his 30, where I was like, damn, like this is gonna be Cam on this one for me. And I thought that Kirk's 30 seconds of taking down the like, dude, you're talking about like Loomis, like trauma stuff, like it's been 40 years like since Michael, all that stuff. I thought that was a really good hit against, and the reason it took me so long was I was thinking back to the whole thing, trying to think of like a counter, not necessarily a counter for that because obviously Cameron didn't have the opportunity to counter, but kind of like what would be comparable to that in Cameron's time, and I didn't feel like there was something to me that felt like it hit that way. So I did go with Kirk. Mark, where are you going?
Well, no clean sweeps today. I went with Cam.
Wow.
I feel like at the end of the day, I think most of the attacks here kind of canceled out with me. I feel like as a whole, Cam, I think, did a better job of painting the picture of, I think, what makes this version of Laurie Strode very interesting and kind of why she feels different from every version that we've seen of her in the previous movies. So yeah, well, when we can on that one.
All right, well, that means that your winner is Kirk Kowalkowski. We are going to start by talking to Cameron. Cameron, obviously probably not the way you want it to go. But that being said, it's hard for me as the host and the judge to have these conversations when I like didn't vote for you. That being said, I genuinely felt like, especially on that last one, but for many of them all being split decisions, and I'm gonna say this to Kirk, that this is maybe the hardest fight Kirk has fought in like a really, really long time. Like even the Bryan fight, which went down to the wire, like I felt like personally you were in, there was never one where I was like, oh, Kirk like totally 100% ran away with this. Like you had him on the edge the whole time, which has got to feel pretty good. Obviously not as good as like winning, but I mean, how are you feeling after the match, man?
I'm feeling good. I feel like Brzakala hates me.
I don't. I really
so we've gone back like 4 years.
I'm sorry.
All the progress that has possibly been made has been undone. But no, I feel good. Like, yeah, Kirk, as I said at the start, has been shown to be one of the best to ever do it here in Fanzone. And like, for me to split every question, go to speed and lose speed in a split, like I'll absolutely take it. Every fight was great. Kirk absolutely proved he is so highly regarded in this division. The only real gripe I have is just, Tim, I would like to take you up in my helicopter and then I'll crash it with the two of us. And you can see if that's more scary than having lunch with a woman who talks a bit too much. And we'll see how you feel after that. But other than that, no, like, I feel good. I feel happy. Like I said at the start, I've been on a rough run. So for my next match, if I can play someone who isn't one of the 3 people who've held the Fanzone title in the past like 2 years, that would be really nice for me. But overall, yeah, I feel really good. I want to make this post match quick. This went a lot longer than I thought it would, mostly because my internet was bad.
That's fair. Cameron, congrats on a match well played. We'll let you get out of here and go back to your fiance. But Cameron, thank you. Yes, you will have another match, and I'll
let me play Alex.
Honestly, it could be. It's very possible. Like it's very possible. You're 7-5 now. Alex is 2-3. So maybe not. Maybe Alex has to get another match in there. But we'll see what we can make happen. Cameron, congrats on a match well played. We'll see you next time. As we bring in Kirk. Kirk, you scared?
A little bit.
Talk to us about it.
Yeah. No. First of all, Cam did great. He's really good at taking arguments I'm ready for and still kind of turning them on their head and throwing different things at me and curveballs at me. That even though like I knew what I'll be completely honest. He's fought a very similar How to Train Your Dragon fight before with that same scene. And I watched that and to prep, and I'm like, okay, I pretty much know what's coming here because he fought a very similar argument, but he still did enough that, you know, he spun me around and I couldn't recover from it. So, I mean, kudos to him. And I mean, like he said, he's played the past 3 champions 3 times in a row. That is a rough run for anybody. You know, he took this to the limit. I know he was close against Bryan. I honestly don't remember. I watched the title match, but I don't remember exactly how that went down. But I know he's held his own. You know, he's still standing after taking, you know, going up against the 3 heavyweights like that. So kudos to him. And yeah, give him a break, please. Let him have somebody he can just kind of.
That's fair. Kirk, I thought you played fantastic today. Obviously, like everyone's just gonna be like, Jimmy Kirk. No, I mean, Kirk.
Well, that makes sense. Last time I played, I got 5-0 against me from Koho, so it's all even now. So we're all.
That's fair. That did happen. I wasn't present for that. Yeah. You know, I take him as I see him. It's
I've been in that seat before. It's tough.
Oh, we all 4 of us have on this call. No one can tell me that I'm unbiased. I've judged matches for Nick Twohig. I've judged matches for you and Cody and Brian, which I would consider all of you like my dearest friends. And I voted against all of you, and it's hard, but it's you got to do what you got to do.
And it's fine. And I apologize. I was frustrated with the Star Trek question, but at the same time, if I'm being completely honest, I probably would have given Cam the point on the musicals, so it kind of balanced out there. That we switched it up, but
yeah. Kirk, this means you are moving on, and what this means you're moving on to. You are going to be playing the winner in a number one contenders match, I might add. You'll be in a contenders match, and you'll be playing the winner of two people you have played before. Jacoby Bancroft and Nazario Montenegro. If I'm not mistaken, you won your title originally off of Jacoby Bancroft, and you played Nazario in a title match as well. So you'll be playing one of them. First question, who do you think is going to win that match if you had to bet on it? And what do you think is how do you feel about playing either of them?
That's tough. I mean, offhand, I want to say Jacoby, but as far as who would win, but Nazario gets better every match, and I think he's definitely going to give him a really tough run for his money. So it'll be interesting. Who I want to play? Listen, I have a lot of white whales in this community, especially in trivia. I'm not very good at trivia, so I have a lot of white whales, people who I've never beaten and that I want to beat really bad. There's only one person whose white whale I am, and that's Jacoby Bancroft. Jacoby has never beat me in trivia, singles, teams, debate, and he'll let you know about that. And I know he wants at me, but every time I play him means there's a chance he'll beat me, and I won't be the white whale anymore. So I want to play
Nazario. That's fair, Kirk. I'm looking forward to it. Congrats on a match well played tonight. Let's get final thoughts, starting with Mr. Cody Newberry.
Listen, I think it was over in the first round. So, like, you voted for Kirk every time. I thought came to 3-0. And nothing that I love more than my good friend Kirk Kowalkowski being completely blinded about how well he does in Star Trek questions. Sir, go back and watch that. You got dusted. But I will say, I think Kirk has still got championship. Like, he is that player. He is the player. I beat him twice, but he has given me my worst loss to date when he beat me the first time. When I thought I was undefeated, could do no wrong, I went in there, went to the speed round, and he punched me in the mouth. So I think he's hungry. I think he can go. I think arguably Jacoby or Kirk can give Brian a run for their money. Or whoever the champion is. My hope, honestly, is that Brian still holds this title long enough so I can get my revenge on Brian, because I don't like to just escape Brian. I would like to take it from him. But again, I think Kirk's really pissed off from the last time that he lost to Brian. And now for a title, that's money. But tonight they played really well. They did really interesting. They fought different. I think Kirk made some weird mistakes, in my opinion. He'll disagree, but I think he made some weird decisions. And I think Cam he lost steam near the end. I mean, I went with Kirk the last two times. So I think he lost some steam, and Kirk was able to capitalize. And you have to finish Kirk off. Like, you have to go through the fight. You can't let off. And he let off, I think, in that musicals question, which cost him. So, yeah.
Mark, final thoughts from you?
Start off by Cam. Cam looked very good, and honestly, looking from the schedule, like, he's really been put through the ringer. Maybe next.
I think that made him a better fighter. To be honest,
yeah.
Maybe next time, plays against Jack. That'll be a hilarious fight. I'll definitely be here to judge that.
I think that's happened, but I can be wrong. But go on.
I don't remember it. Yeah, but like, Kirk just kind of felt off balance this entire fight. He kind of had to scratch and claw to win that Pacino question. And then, like, it felt like almost nothing went Kirk's way the entire time, and he still won. like which is kind of nuts. Like even on a bad day for Kirk, he still wins. Like it's just weird how it plays out here in the end. Like I don't want to be the next person to play Kirk. I don't want to be Jacoby or Nazario. Like you're gonna have a tough night. Like whoever.
I'm glad I won't have to judge that fight. That's what I'm excited about. Whoever Kirk plays next, I will not be able to judge. So, this is my last Kirk match.
All right, guys. That's gonna do it for us today at Fandom Fights. Jesus, Fanzone debate. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you to Kirk and Cameron for playing. Thank you to Mark and Cody for judging. Thank you to Brian for helping behind the scenes. I have been Tim. We'll see you guys next time with another great match. Until then, have a great night. Bye.
Live long and proud.
There we go. Thank you very much. Please come again. We have a lot more groceries.
You son of a bitch.